Hey, and welcome back to Resilience Builds. Today we are taking a look at how to remove the exhaust from the turbo back on our 1987 Chrysler Conquest TSI. First thing that I did was soak everything in some PB Blaster penetrating oil. Then I'm going after the 3 bolts holding the rear of the turbo housing to the beginning of the turbo back exhaust. The next thing I went after was the oxygen sensor, which sat right on top of the exhaust right before the 90-degree bend into the catalytic converter. Almost all of the bolt sizes or nut sizes are going to be a 10, a 12, or 13 millimeter when taking off these exhaust components on the top of the engine. The heat shield on this Conquest can be a little tricky. All the nut and bolt sizes are 10 millimeter. You're going to need some extensions and some swiveling sockets in order to get after some of the bolts on this heat shield. With the heat shield removed, I was then able to get back after the 3 bolts holding the rear of the turbo housing to the beginning of the exhaust. And here you're just seeing me use a ratchet with an extension in order to get to that lower nut holding in the exhaust to the rear of the turbine housing. With the oxygen sensor, the 3 nuts removed, I then go after the Egr pipe. Now this pipe is rough and I think at least an inch if you're going to try to back it off using a large wrench or something. I just found it easier to cut it apart. And here is ultimately what it looked like when I was able to get the exhaust off with the Egr pipe still in place, which I later removed. So after cutting the Egr pipe, I was able then to get under the car and unbolt the catalytic converter to the mid pipe and pull out that beginning of the exhaust, including the O2 housing and the catalytic converter. And like with many of the other exhaust components, I sprayed the heck out of anything that needed to be removed with PB Blaster. So lastly, now we just have the mid pipe all the way to the rear axle of the exhaust to remove. Now I lucked out because from the beginning of the rear axle to where the exhaust typically would outlet the exhaust fumes, it was missing. Yeah, it looked like the previous owner had just chopped whatever muffler was there. Something that was funky is this car had these bizarre O-ring hangers. So they're these like inch thick rubber isolators. Typically I see just little metal kind of J-hooks and then a rubber isolator suspending the exhaust. Whereas with this little guy, like you see right now, that thing is what was ultimately holding the exhaust bracket up. And that was the only one holding everything from basically the turbo back. It was just swinging and suspended by 2 little rubber isolators. If you want to continue to watch future episodes, make sure to like and subscribe.